Welcome, dear listener, to our channel Go to Sleep Historian. Tonight, we conclude our journey through the ancient world of dreams, from the dream books of Egypt, to the healing temples of Greece, to the omens and visions of Mesopotamia. Dreams, for the ancients, were not just fleeting images, but messages of destiny, warnings of danger, and sometimes gentle gifts from the divine. So settle in, find a place of comfort, and let the quiet rhythms of the past carry you toward rest. If you enjoy wandering through history as you drift to sleep, don't forget to follow and subscribe to our channel, where the past becomes your bedtime companion. The Egyptian world of dreams, a gateway to the divine. Close your eyes for a moment, dear listener, and let us drift back more than 3,000 years, to a land where the golden sun sets over the Nile, and the night descends upon temples and mud-brick homes alike. Imagine the cool desert breeze moving gently through the palm groves, while the stars rise, ancient and eternal, above the pyramids and the sacred river. In that world, as sleep arrived, so too did the possibility of a message, not just the fleeting play of the mind, but a sacred whisper from the gods themselves. In ancient Egypt, dreams were never considered ordinary. They were powerful, sometimes feared, sometimes treasured, but always significant. To the Egyptians, the dream state was a bridge between the human and the divine, a passage through which mortals could encounter gods, spirits, and even glimpses of the afterlife. Each night, as men and women lay down upon red mats or carved wooden beds, they did so with the belief that slumber was not simply rest, it was an opening into another realm. The divine connection for Egyptians, the gods were never distant. They were present in the rising of the sun, in the flooding of the Nile, in the quiet birth of a child, and in the solemn silence of the tomb. Dreams were yet another channel of their presence. To dream was to walk briefly in the company of the divine. Some dreams were seen as blessings, others as warnings, and still others as trials, tests of character, or glimpses of hidden dangers. It is said that the god Thoth, patron of wisdom, writing, and magic, was often associated with dreams. He was thought to grant insight through symbols and guide priests in the interpretation of dream messages. To dream was not random, it was, in their eyes, communication. Just as hieroglyphs carved into stone held divine meaning, so too did the images and visions that came in sleep. The household bedchamber? Picture now a common Egyptian household. The clay lamp dimmed to a soft glow, the air filled with the faint scent of oil and incense. A family might say quiet prayers before sleep, hoping to be blessed with peaceful visions. Protective amulets, perhaps shaped like the eye of Horus or the scarab beetle, might be placed nearby, guarding the dreamer against malevolent spirits. Even ordinary farmers and workers saw dreams as guides. A dream of abundant grain might bring hope of a good harvest. A dream of drowning in the Nile could stir fear of a coming flood. For the everyday Egyptian, these nighttime journeys were woven into the rhythms of life just as surely as planting and harvesting, birth and death. Dreams of kings and pharaohs. Yet it was among Egypt's rulers and priests that dreams were treated with the greatest reverence. Pharaohs were not just kings, they were divine beings, children of the gods. A dream to a pharaoh could determine the course of kingdoms. Some ancient inscriptions tell of rulers who received visions in the night, guiding them toward victory or warning them of betrayal. One of the most famous accounts comes from the dream stele of Thutmose IV, an inscription carved between the paws of the Great Sphinx. According to this story, the young prince Thutmose fell asleep in the shadow of the Sphinx. In his dream, the mighty statue spoke to him, promising kingship if he would clear the sand that had buried its body. Inspired by this vision, Thutmose did so, and in time, he became pharaoh. The dream was not merely a personal experience, it was recorded and enshrined in stone, a testament to divine favor. Dreams as warnings, but not all dreams were so reassuring. Egyptians also believed that dreams could carry warnings. A dream of serpents might be a sign of betrayal. A dream of darkness or silence could suggest illness or death. Because of this, people sought out interpreters, priests, and wise men trained to read the language of visions. These dream interpreters often used carefully preserved dream books, collections of symbols, and their meanings. We shall explore those books more deeply in the next chapter, but for now, imagine the reverence with which they were handled. Scrolls of papyrus inked with neat hieroglyphs holding centuries of accumulated wisdom about the hidden world of sleep. A sacred duty to dream in ancient Egypt was more than personal. It was social, political, even cosmic. If a soldier dreamed of a falcon, it might be seen as a sign that Horus, the god of kingship, favored his cause. If a priest dreamed of a flood, it might be taken as a message for the temple, or even for the whole land. Dreams shaped decisions. They were not ignored as fleeting images of the night. They were studied, discussed, and remembered. The quiet of the night? As we drift deeper into this chapter, let us return once more to the stillness of an Egyptian night. The desert stretches into silence, broken only by the quiet rustle of reeds along the river. In a modest home, a family lies down upon woven mats. In the great palaces, a pharaoh reclines beneath fine linen sheets, guarded by servants and protected by sacred charms. In temples, priests chant softly, invoking the presence of gods. Everywhere, across this ancient land, sleep comes, and with it, the shimmering possibility of dreams. What will they see? A god, radiant and powerful, offering guidance. A dark figure, forewarning of danger. A vision of fields rich with wheat, or waters rising too fast. No one knows, and yet all believe. To the Egyptian, the dream is never meaningless. It is the language of the gods, spoken in images, carried into the quiet chambers of the night. As you listen now, perhaps with your own eyes growing heavy, consider the wonder of that ancient belief. Each night was a mystery, each dream was a possible revelation. In a world lit by stars and governed by gods, dreams were the whispers of eternity. And so, dear listener, with Chapter 1 we have opened the door. In the next chapter, we will step into the sacred pages of the Egyptian dream books themselves, where the symbols of the night were carefully recorded and given meaning, one image at a time. The Egyptian dream books, reading the symbols of the night, another step in our journey through the mysterious world of ancient dreams. Here, on Go to Sleep Historian, we drift once again into the night, following the soft glow of oil lamps into a place where ink, papyrus, and quiet wisdom gave shape to the strange visions of sleep. In the land of the pharaohs where gods walked alongside men, and the afterlife was as real as the desert sands, dreams were not left to chance. They were studied, interpreted, and carefully written down. The Egyptians, lovers of order and meaning, created something remarkable, the first recorded dream books, guides that explained what the symbols of the night truly meant. The mystery of the dream books: imagine a priest in a dimly lit chamber, seated before a roll of papyrus. The air smells faintly of ink and resin. Before him lies a collection of signs and interpretations, passed down from generations before. This was no ordinary book. It was a key to another world, a world where lions, rivers, stars, and serpents each carried a message. The best-known surviving dream book is preserved today in fragments. Dating back to the New Kingdom, around 1200 BCE, written in hieratic script, it is a catalogue of dreams, each carefully described, each given a meaning, good or bad, favorable or dangerous. To read such a book was to step into a library of the subconscious, where every dream was a message waiting to be understood. Dreams of good fortune, some dreams were blessings. To dream of seeing a large cat might mean protection from illness. To dream of a clear sky could mean the favor of the gods. To dream of drinking fresh water was a promise of health and long life. These were the dreams that brought comfort, that reassured a person that the gods watched over them kindly. The Egyptians often marked such dreams with the phrase, "It is good." A dream where one walked upon firm ground was a good sign. A dream where one ate fresh bread was a good omen. These small notes of reassurance gave peace to those who feared what the night might bring. Dreams of danger, but not all dreams carried such gentle messages. To dream of drowning in the Nile was a warning of hardship. To see oneself covered in darkness meant illness or even death. A dream of snakes could mean betrayal. A dream of fire might suggest conflict. These dreams carried the phrase, "It is bad." For the dreamer, such visions were not to be ignored. They might prompt offerings at the temple, prayers for protection, or rituals to drive away the danger. In some cases, priests gave amulets or charms to ward off the ill fortune revealed in the night's vision. A book for all people. What is striking about these dream books is how ordinary their symbols often were. They spoke of bread, water, animals, daily life. This was not knowledge reserved for kings alone. Even common people might consult these interpretations, seeking meaning in the ordinary images that passed before their eyes as they slept. And yet, these books were not merely superstition. To the Egyptians, they were a way of bringing order to mystery. Just as the Nile's flood could be measured and predicted, so too could dreams be studied, categorized, and understood. The role of the interpreter, reading a dream book, however, was not as simple as opening a scroll. Priests and interpreters often guided the process. They were trained in symbols, rituals, and the delicate art of linking visions to divine will. Some may have been attached to temples, others consulted privately. Imagine the scene. A worried mother approaches a temple priest, explaining that she dreamed of her child walking into the river. The priest, listening carefully, turns to the dream book. "It is bad," he might say, "but offerings to Hathor, Lady of Joy and Protection, may turn the danger away." The dream becomes not just a warning, but a call to ritual, a moment of connection with the gods. Pharaohs and sacred books for pharaohs. The stakes were higher. Dreams of kings might decide the future of nations. A vision of falcons soaring above a battlefield could mean victory. A dream of enemies in the palace could suggest betrayal within the court. Priests interpreted these dreams with the utmost care, consulting the dream books with solemn precision. In this way, the dream books were both practical and sacred. They were guides not only for farmers and families, but for rulers and dynasties. Within their papyrus scrolls lay the hopes and fears of an entire civilization. Symbols that speak across time. What is perhaps most fascinating is how familiar many of these symbols still feel. Even today, people speak of dreams of falling, of flying, of snakes, or floods. The Egyptians gave these symbols fixed meanings, but the human imagination has not changed so much. Across thousands of years, we still dream of the same images. The difference is in how we understand them. And so, dear listener, As the Nile flowed year after year, so too did the dreams of Egypt, carried into the careful lines of papyrus dream books. These scrolls remind us that people of long ago looked upon their dreams with the same wonder we feel today. To them, dreams were not chaos, but a language of gods, fate, and destiny. As you close your eyes tonight, think of those ancient scrolls resting in temple libraries, filled with symbols of cats, rivers, stars, and fire. Perhaps your own dreams, if the Egyptians had written them down, would also have been judged. It is good or it is bad. Next time, we will step into the temples themselves, to see how priests and dreamers sought out visions through sacred sleep, rituals designed not just to receive dreams, but to invite them. The priests and the temples, interpreters of the Egyptian dream world. Here is another gentle journey into the world of ancient dreams. On Go to Sleep Historian, we move slowly through history, like the steady current of the Nile beneath the stars. We step inside the sacred spaces of Egypt, temples lit by flickering lamps, where priests whispered prayers, and where the hidden meanings of dreams were carefully unlocked. The guardians of meaning in ancient Egypt, not everyone was trusted to interpret a dream. This was a sacred duty, one that required wisdom, training, and the blessing of the gods. Priests were the guardians of this knowledge. They stood at the delicate boundary between the human and the divine, helping the people understand what the gods were saying in the mysterious images of the night. Some priests specialized in healing, others in prophecy, and still others in funerary rites. Among their many duties, interpreting dreams was considered both practical and holy. A wrongly understood dream could bring fear or misfortune. A wisely interpreted one could bring peace, courage, and guidance. The temple at night. Imagine approaching a great Egyptian temple as the day draws to a close. The sun has set, and the last golden light reflects upon tall pylons carved with hieroglyphs. Within, the air is cooler, scented with incense. The temple walls are painted with images of gods Isis, Osiris, Horus, Thoth. Here, in the quiet chambers, priests listen to the dreams of those who came seeking help. Perhaps a farmer troubled by visions of flooding waters. Perhaps a soldier who dreamed of being wounded in battle. Perhaps even a noblewoman who dreamed of speaking with a radiant figure, uncertain if it was a blessing or a warning. Each dream was offered like a gift, and the priest's task was to unwrap its meaning. The ritual of consultation. The consultation often followed a rhythm. First, the dreamer would describe the dream, speaking slowly, recalling every detail. The priest would listen carefully, noting symbols and images. Then, turning to sacred knowledge, sometimes consulting papyrus dream books, sometimes relying on memory and tradition, he would interpret the vision. The outcome could be simple, it is good, meaning that God smiled upon the dreamer. Or it could be troubling, it is bad, requiring rituals of protection. At times, offerings were recommended, bread, incense, or a small statue given at the temple altar. These acts were not mere superstition. To the Egyptians, they were a way of balancing the unseen forces, of turning away harm and inviting blessing. Dreams as divine visitations at the highest level. Some dreams were seen not just as symbols, but as direct visitations from the gods themselves. A dream of Ra, the sun god, might suggest divine protection and authority. A dream of Osiris could bring messages about death and rebirth. A dream of Hathor, goddess of joy and love, might bring reassurance of fertility and family happiness. When such dreams occurred, priests treated them with solemn reverence. They might record them in temple archives, linking the dreamer's vision to cosmic events. For kings and nobles, these dreams could be considered signs of divine approval or warning, guidance for the future of Egypt itself. The power of Thoth among all the gods. Thoth held special importance in the interpretation of dreams. Patron of wisdom, writing, and magic, he was believed to have given humanity the gift of language. To read a dream was, in a sense, to write with Thoth's pen, to turn the mysterious visions of the night into clear meaning. Many priests invoked Thoth before dream consultations, asking for clarity, insight, and protection from error. The hidden chamber of sleep. Some temples were also places where dreams were intentionally sought. Though the Greek Asclepian dream temples are more famous, Egypt too had practices of sleeping within sacred spaces to invite visions. A dream experienced in a temple was considered more powerful, more trustworthy, because it happened within the presence of the gods. Imagine lying down on a simple mat within the stone walls of a temple. The lamps flicker, shadows dance along the carved pillars, and the air is filled with the low hum of chanting priests. Here, in the sacred silence, the dreamer drifts into sleep, awaiting a vision sent not from chance, but from the gods themselves. Everyday guidance and great decisions. For ordinary people, the priest's interpretation might bring comfort in daily struggles, reassurance of a good harvest, warning of sickness, or guidance for marriage and family. For the powerful, however, dreams were woven into the very fabric of state decisions. Pharaohs, generals, and high priests often consulted dream interpreters before battles, journeys, or great projects. Thus, temples were not only centers of worship, but also centers of dream interpretation. In their shadowed halls, personal anxieties and national destinies alike were laid bare through the visions of the night. As the night deepens, Think of those Egyptian priests, keepers of the mystery, listening to the stories of dreamers beneath the flicker of oil lamps. Think of the quiet confidence of the people, trusting that their visions could be read, that their fears could be soothed, that their futures could be guided by the wisdom of the gods. And so, dear listener, as you lie in your own quiet space, remember that in another time long ago, someone might have brought your dream to a temple, placed it before a priest, and waited for the words, "It is good," or "It is bad." In our next chapter, we will climb higher, into the dreams of the pharaohs themselves, visions carved into stone, dreams that claimed kingdoms, and stories that echo across millennia. Pharaohs and the political power of dreams. Our journey through the dream world of ancient Egypt brings us into the chambers of kings, into the guarded palaces, and the monumental decisions shaped not only by politics and armies, but by visions seen in the quiet hours of sleep. Here, in the glow of torchlight on golden walls, we discover how dreams carried the weight of kingdoms. The pharaoh is a dreamer to the Egyptian people. The pharaoh was not merely a ruler, he was a living god, the son of Ra, chosen to maintain balance and order in the world. Every action of a pharaoh was thought to be guided by the divine in dreams. In this belief, were one of the most powerful channels of divine instruction. When a pharaoh dreamed, it was not simply a personal experience. His vision carried the fate of Egypt itself. Priests, scribes, and courtiers listened closely to every detail, for a dream could confirm divine favor or warn of disaster. The dream stele of Thutmose, for one of the most famous dream accounts, comes from the reign of Thutmose IV, around the 14th century BCE. As the story goes, young Thutmose, before becoming pharaoh, fell asleep near the great Sphinx at Giza. In his dream, the mighty statue spoke to him. The Sphinx promised him the throne if he would clear away the sands that had buried much of its body. Thutmose obeyed the vision. He restored the Sphinx, and when he rose to power, he commemorated the event with an inscription known as the Dream Stele. Even today, carved between the paws of the Sphinx, these words remind us how a single dream could be elevated into a divine sign, a prophecy carved into stone. Military dreams and omens of victory. For Egypt's rulers, dreams often served as guides in times of war. Before leading armies into battle, pharaohs sometimes sought omens and visions. A dream of falcons soaring above a battlefield could be taken as a promise of victory. A dream of the Nile swelling with strength might symbolize the power of Egypt rising against its enemies. Generals and priests stood ready to interpret these visions. A favorable dream could embolden troops, while a troubling one might require urgent rituals, offerings, or prayers to turn away disaster. In this way, dreams were woven into the very strategy of war. Dreams of betrayal and warning. Not all royal dreams spoke of triumph. Some carried warnings of treachery. A pharaoh dreaming of serpents within his palace might fear betrayal among his closest advisors. A vision of broken statues could suggest disorder or rebellion. When such dreams occurred, priests were summoned quickly. The palace became a place of whispered consultation, as interpreters worked to understand the symbols. Offerings might be given to pacify the gods. In some cases, a dream could even influence political purges, alliances, or new temple constructions designed to restore cosmic balance. The pharaoh's public dream, what made pharaonic dreams unique, was how public they became. Unlike ordinary people, whose dreams remained private or within the temple, the visions of kings were sometimes announced, inscribed, and celebrated as divine revelations. By declaring a dream as divine instruction, a pharaoh could strengthen his claim to power. He could say, "The gods themselves spoke to me in the night, and I rule by their command." Thus, dreams were not only spiritual, but deeply political tools. The cosmic responsibility at the heart of it all was the Egyptian belief in Mat, balance, order, truth. A pharaoh's dreams were not for himself alone. They were bound to the destiny of the kingdom. If he dreamed of harmony, Egypt prospered. If he dreamed of chaos, the land was at risk. Every dream carried this weight of cosmic responsibility. Each vision was part of a greater story, a thread in the tapestry that connected gods, king, and people. The stillness of the royal chamber now. Let us pause and imagine a royal chamber in Thebes. The night is quiet, the air heavy with the scent of lotus blossoms. A pharaoh lies upon a carved bed of ebony and gold, linen sheets drawn lightly over his body. Beside him, amulets and protective charms guard his rest. Outside, guards stand silent, spears glinting under the moonlight. Within, priests wait in anticipation of the morning, when the pharaoh will rise and speak, "I dreamed." And in that moment, Egypt itself will lean forward, waiting to hear the God's will. As you rest tonight, remember how powerful a single dream could be in the eyes of the ancient world. For a pharaoh, dreams were not whispers of the mind, but messages written upon the fabric of destiny. A dream could promise a throne, predict a battle, or preserve the harmony of the cosmos. And so, dear listener, as you drift into your own dreams, think of the kings of Egypt, who carried not only crowns of gold, but also the heavy weight of visions. Their dreams became history, carved in stone and remembered for thousands of years. In our next chapter, we will leave the palaces of kings and step into the humble homes of ordinary Egyptians to see how farmers, mothers, and children sought peace and protection in their nightly dreams. dreams of everyday people, rituals of comfort and protection. Through the temples of Egypt, listened to the whispers of priests, and even entered the royal chambers of pharaohs, where dreams guided kings and shaped kingdoms. But tonight, let us step away from palaces and monuments. Let us walk quietly into the narrow streets of an Egyptian village, into homes made of mud brick where families live their daily lives. Here, we discover how ordinary people, farmers, workers, mothers and children dreamt, and how they found meaning in those visions of the night. The humble bedchamber? Imagine a modest Egyptian house by the banks of the Nile. The walls are plain, made from sun-dried clay. The air is warm, and a small clay lamp flickers in the corner, casting soft shadows on the walls. A family lies down on reed mats or simple wooden frames, with woven blankets pulled close. Before sleep, they whisper prayers to the gods, asking for protection through the night. For the everyday Egyptian, dreams were not distant mysteries reserved only for priests and rulers. Dreams were part of daily life, signs that could comfort, warn, or inspire. In the same way a farmer read the signs of the river or the winds in the desert, he also looked for signs in the visions of his sleep, common symbols, common lives. The dream books we explored earlier were filled with symbols taken from ordinary life. Bread, water, animals, farming tools. These were the images that filled the dreams of common people. To dream of eating fresh bread might bring hope of abundance. To dream of drinking clean water might suggest good health. To dream of a snake lurking in the fields might stir fear of betrayal or danger. Children, too, were thought to have special dreams. Parents often listened closely when their children described visions, believing that the innocence of youth might allow them to receive clearer messages from the gods. Protective charms and amulets. Dreams could bring peace, but they could also bring fear. To guard against troubling visions, Egyptians used charms and amulets. Small figures of gods were placed near the bed, the eye of Horus for protection, a scarab beetle for renewal, or the goddess Base, who watched over households and children. Some families placed written spells near their sleeping spaces, believing that words themselves had protective power. Others burned incense before bed, filling the room with sacred fragrance to keep away harmful spirits. These rituals were simple but deeply meaningful. They gave ordinary people a sense of safety, a feeling that even in the vulnerable state of sleep, they were not alone. Dreams as family matters. When someone in the household had a vivid dream, it was often shared in the morning. Families might discuss it over bread and beer, just as they discussed the weather or the crops. If a dream was troubling, they might seek the advice of a local priest. If it was joyful, they might take it as a sign of blessing upon the home. In this way, dreams became part of the fabric of family life. They were not locked away in silence, but spoken aloud, remembered, and sometimes even acted upon. A farmer might change his planting after a warning dream. A mother might visit the temple to give offerings after a vision of danger. The comfort of belief. What stands out most is not whether the dreams came true, but the comfort people found in believing they mattered. Life in ancient Egypt could be hard. The river could flood too much or too little. Illness could strike without warning, and death was always near. In such a world, dreams offered reassurance that the gods were present, watching, guiding, and speaking, even in the stillness of night. For the common Egyptian, to dream was to know that life was connected to something greater. Each vision was a reminder that the struggles of daily existence were part of a divine story, written not only in stone temples, but also in the fragile pages of sleep. Night along the Nile now. Let us return to the quiet night along the Nile. The river glimmers under the moonlight. The fields are silent, resting before the next day's labor. Within the homes of farmers and craftsmen, families sleep soundly, guarded by their charms, surrounded by the warmth of belief. Some dream of laughter, some of work, some of gods shining with radiant light. Others dream of troubling things, shadows, storms, or serpents. But whatever they see, they wake with the knowledge that their dreams are part of the same great tapestry that bound together pharaohs, priests, and peasants alike. And so, dear listener, we close the Egyptian chapter of our journey. From kings to commoners, dreams were seen as sacred, as meaningful, as windows into the hidden world of gods and spirits. In the dream books, in the temples, and in the humble homes, Egyptians sought wisdom in the visions of the night. As you drift into your own sleep, think of those who came before you, lying down beside the Nile, whispering prayers to the gods, holding charms against their chest. Like them, you may find that dreams carry comfort, mystery, and perhaps even messages of hope. In our next chapter, we will travel across the Mediterranean, to ancient Greece, to a land of philosophers and healers, where sacred dream temples invited pilgrims to sleep in search of visions that could cure body and soul. The Greek view of dreams. Between gods and philosophy, we leave the golden sands of Egypt and sail across the Mediterranean Sea, toward the rocky coasts and olive groves of ancient Greece, the land of philosophers, poets, and healers, a place where dreams were thought to be bridges between the human world and the divine. In Greece, people believed that dreams could come directly from the gods, guiding, warning, or even healing those who sought meaning in the night. But unlike Egypt, where dream books offered fixed interpretations, the Greeks debated, questioned, and philosophized about the mysteries of sleep. Dreams became not only sacred messages, but also subjects for reason and reflection. So let us journey into the Greek mind, a mind that balanced faith with philosophy and temples with thought. The gods who sent dreams in Greek belief. Dreams were often considered gifts or warnings from the gods. The mighty Zeus could send a dream to command kings. Hermes, the swift messenger, was thought to carry dreams across the boundary between mortals and the divine. And Morpheus, the gentle god of sleep and dreams, could shape visions with clarity, crafting them in forms that felt as real as waking life. To dream was to open a door through which the gods might step. A vision of victory might be a promise. A vision of disaster might be a warning. Dreams were not random flickers of the mind, but divine threads woven into the fabric of human fate. Dreams in Homer's epics. One of the earliest and most famous references to dreams in Greek literature comes from Homer's epics, the Iliad and the Odyssey. In these ancient tales, dreams were powerful and direct. Zeus himself sends Agamemnon a deceptive dream in the Iliad, urging him to go into battle. In the Odyssey, Penelope dreams of geese and an eagle, a vision that hints at her husband Odysseus's return. In Homer's world, dreams were not vague symbols. They were vivid messages, sometimes clear, sometimes misleading, but always carrying weight. A dream could alter the course of wars, guide kings, or reassure the waiting heart of a queen. Philosophers begin to question. But Greece was also the birthplace of philosophy, and not everyone accepted dreams at face value. Thinkers such as Heraclitus, Plato, and Aristotle began to ask deeper questions. Were dreams always divine, or could they be products of the human mind? Plato believed that dreams revealed the hidden desires of the soul, impulses that were restrained during the day but surfaced at night. Aristotle, more scientific in his approach, suggested that dreams were linked to the senses and to the body's state during sleep. For him, dreams might arise from digestion, illness, or memory. And yet, even as they debated, the philosophers did not deny the mystery. Dreams remained something sacred, poised between reason and the realm of the gods. Dreams and healing. For the Greeks, dreams were also tied to health. In the temples of Asclepius, the god of healing, people would come to sleep and seek visions that might cure their illnesses. This practice, known as incubation, turned dreams into medicine, a subject we will explore more deeply in the chapters ahead. But even outside the temples, ordinary people believed that dreams could warn of sickness or promise recovery. To dream of clear water might be a sign of health. To dream of shadows might foretell weakness or danger. The Greek night picture, if you will, the Greek night. The air is cool, filled with the scent of the sea and the sound of cicadas in the olive trees. In a modest home, a family lies down to rest. A mother whispers a prayer to the gods before closing her eyes. A philosopher sits awake under the stars, pondering the strange images he saw in last night's sleep. A soldier dreams of battle, unsure whether the vision comes from his own fears or from Zeus himself. In Greece, the dream world belonged to everyone, kings, poets, healers, and common folk alike. And though they differed in their explanations, all agreed on one thing: dreams mattered. They were not empty illusions, but echoes of a truth that touched both heaven and earth. As we close this chapter, remember that the Greeks lived in a world alive with meaning. To dream was to glimpse the touch of gods, the whisper of the soul, or the stirrings of the body itself. They questioned, but they also believed. They explained, but they also revered. In our next chapter, we will enter the dream temples of Greece, sacred places where pilgrims came with hope in their hearts, seeking visions that could heal body and spirit. So, dear listener, let your own night be gentle, and as you drift into sleep, imagine that the gods themselves may still walk quietly through the corridors of your dreams. Dream temples and the healing sleep of Asclepius. Tonight our journey takes us to a place of hope, of healing, and of sacred sleep. We are standing before the marble steps of a Greek temple, surrounded by the scent of pine and the soft rustle of the evening breeze. This is no ordinary temple. It is a sanctuary dedicated to Asclepius, the god of healing, where dreams themselves are medicine. For centuries, men and women came here with ailments of the body and burdens of the mind. They did not seek potions, nor the sharp tools of surgeons. Instead, they sought sleep, guided, sacred sleep, within the temple walls. In that sleep, they hoped to meet the god, or his divine messengers, and awaken with visions that held the power to cure. Let us walk slowly into these dream temples and discover the practice the Greeks called incubation. Arrival at the sanctuary. Imagine arriving at the great sanctuary of Epidaurus, the most famous of all healing temples. The journey might take days, across mountains and valleys, but the sick and the hopeful came in endless streams. Pilgrims brought offerings, coins, votive statues, or clay models shaped like the body parts they hoped to heal: a leg, an arm, an ear, a pair of eyes. At the entrance, priests welcomed them, guiding them through purification rituals. Pilgrims bathed in sacred water, fasting or eating simple meals to cleanse their bodies, their hearts filled with quiet expectation, knowing that the true healing would come in the silence of the night. Sleeping in the abaton. The heart of the ritual took place in the abaton, a long shadowed hall within the temple. Here, pilgrims lay down on simple bedding, side by side, waiting for sleep to come. The hall was quiet, except for the faint sound of the wind and the soft breathing of hundreds of dreamers. Oil lamps flickered, casting a gentle glow on the stone walls. As they drifted into sleep, they believed that Asclepius himself might appear. Sometimes he came as a bearded god with a staff entwined by a serpent, the same image that still symbolizes medicine today. At other times, he appeared as a kind physician, or even as a serpent, a sacred animal in his cult. The dream was the cure. A vision might reveal what medicine to take, what food to avoid, or what ritual to perform. Some pilgrims dreamed of being touched by the god, who healed their wounds or restored their sight. Others awoke with instructions to follow, guidance that they trusted as divine. Testimonies of healing. The walls of these sanctuaries once displayed inscriptions left by grateful dreamers. They recorded miraculous cures. A man blind in one eye dreamed that the god applied an ointment, and he awoke with his sight restored. A woman unable to walk dreamed that Asclepius touched her leg, and the next day she walked again. A soldier with festering wounds dreamed of snakes licking his sores, and by morning they were healed. To the Greeks, these were not stories of imagination, but proof that the god was present and powerful, working through the mysteries of the dream. The role of priests and rituals. While the dreams were central, the priests of Asclepius also played a part. They interpreted the visions, advised the pilgrims, and sometimes prescribed simple remedies, herbs, baths, or exercises. In this way, the temple combined faith and medicine, spirituality and practical care. But it was the dream that made the sanctuary unique. Unlike other healing practices of the time, this was not only about the body, but about the soul's encounter with the divine. Night in the temple. Close your eyes now, dear listener, and imagine lying in the abbot, and around you are fellow dreamers, breathing softly in the night. The air is cool, carrying the scent of olive oil and burning incense. You feel a strange peace, as if the god himself is near. You drift into sleep. In your dream, a gentle figure approaches, carrying a serpent. He touches your chest, and you feel warmth spread through your body. In the morning, you awaken with a calm heart, convinced that you have been healed. For the Greeks, this was no illusion. It was the sacred power of dreams, a bridge between mortal suffering and divine compassion. As we leave the dream temples of Asclepius, we see how deeply the Greeks trusted the mysteries of sleep. For them, the night was not empty rest, but a place of healing, where gods walked quietly through the corridors of the mind. In our next chapter, we will look more closely at the symbols and interpretations of Greek dreams, how philosophers, poets, and priests sought to understand the strange images of the night. So, dear listener, as you drift into your own rest, imagine yourself beneath the stone arches of the Abaton, with the god of healing nearby. Perhaps, like those ancient dreamers, you too may find peace in the visions that come. Greek dream symbols and the art of interpretation. We have walked through the healing temples of Asclepius, where pilgrims slept in search of visions that could cure. But tonight, let us turn to another aspect of Greek dream culture, the art of interpretation. For while some dreams seemed clear, many arrived wrapped in mystery, filled with symbols that begged to be unraveled. The Greeks, ever curious, did not leave these questions unanswered. Poets, priests, and philosophers all tried to understand what the flickering images of the night might mean. And so, in their world, dreams were more than private experiences. They were messages that could be read, studied, and, at times, even predicted. The symbolic nature of dreams in Greek thought, dreams rarely came as plain statements. Instead, they were clothed in symbols: a bird flying overhead, a river crossing the path, a crown of flowers resting on the brow. Each symbol carried meaning, sometimes obvious, sometimes hidden. To dream of flight might suggest victory or freedom. To dream of drowning might warn of sorrow or loss. To see snakes could mean healing and renewal, for they were sacred to Asclepius, but also betrayal and danger. The meaning depended on context, on the dreamer, and on the interpreter's wisdom. Just as the Greeks read omens in the flight of birds or the crackle of fire, so too did they read the language of dreams. The interpreter's role in many towns, men known as unirokote, dream interpreters, offered their services. A person troubled by a vision could visit such an interpreter, describe their dream in detail, and receive guidance. Some interpreters were priests, others philosophers, and still others wandering seers who carried their knowledge from village to village. These interpreters often relied on collections of dream lore, which gathered traditional meanings passed down through generations. While Egypt had formal dream books, Greek interpretations were more fluid, shaped by both tradition and the unique circumstances of the dreamer. The work of Artemidaris, one of the most famous Greek interpreters, was Artemidaris of Daldis, who lived in the 2nd century CE. His great work, Onidokritikas, survives even today, offering a window into ancient thought. Artemidaris believed that dreams reflected the dreamer's life, their health, their work, their relationships, even their future. He gathered examples from sailors, farmers, merchants, and housewives, showing how dreams arose from the fabric of everyday existence. To dream of sailing, he suggested, might mean success for a sailor, but confusion for a farmer. To dream of eating sweet fruit might bring joy to the young, but sorrow to the sick. For Artemidorus, dreams spoke differently to each person, and interpretation required attention to the details of their life. Dreams of prophecy. Not all Greeks saw dreams as mere symbols of daily concerns. Some believed that dreams could truly foretell the future. Oracles sometimes confirmed visions brought by dreamers, and generals consulted their dreams before battle. There are stories of men who dreamed of victories before they were won, of mothers who dreamed of children yet to be born, of warnings that saved lives when heeded. Such stories spread quickly, reinforcing the belief that the gods used dreams as their chosen messengers. Everyday dreams. But not all dreams were grand or prophetic. Most were simple, rooted in daily life. A woman might dream of weaving and wonder if it meant harmony in her household. A farmer might dream of rain and hope it signaled a good harvest. These small dreams mattered too, giving shape to hopes and fears that were otherwise unspoken. The act of sharing dreams also created bonds. Families might speak of them in the morning, or friends might compare visions at the marketplace. In this way, dreams became part of community life, a language that everyone shared. And as we close this chapter, remember that the Greeks treated dreams as both mystery and message. They looked for meaning not only in the stars above or the omens of the earth, but in the visions of the night. From the temple halls to the philosopher's study, from the battlefield to the village home, dreams wove themselves into the very fabric of Greek life. In our next chapter, we will explore how Greek philosophers from Plato to Aristotle tried to explain dreams not as messages from the gods, but as windows into the workings of the human mind. So, dear listener, as you prepare for sleep, consider your own dreams. What symbols might they carry? What quiet truths might they whisper to you in the night? Greek philosophers and the nature of dreams. We have wandered through temples, heard the whispers of healers, and explored the symbols of dreams in the lives of ordinary Greeks. But now, let us step into the quiet halls of philosophy, where men sat beneath the olive trees, asking questions that still echo through time. For the Greeks, philosophy was a way of seeking truth, and when it came to dreams, the philosophers wondered, were they truly messages from the gods, or could they be explained by reason, by the nature of the human mind itself? Tonight, let us listen as Plato, Aristotle, and other great thinkers share their visions of the dream world. Plato, the soul unleashed in sleep. Plato, the student of Socrates and teacher of Aristotle, believed that dreams revealed the hidden desires of the soul. In waking life, reason ruled, guiding people toward wisdom and virtue. But in sleep, when reason was quiet, the soul's passions could emerge. He described how, in dreams, one might see desires that were forbidden or restrained by day, ambitions, fears, or impulses too wild to be spoken aloud. For Plato, dreams were like a window into the hidden self, a glimpse of the forces that lived beneath the surface of consciousness. Yet he did not see dreams as meaningless. By studying them, one might learn about the struggles within the soul and, perhaps, move closer to harmony. Aristotle, the natural philosophy of dreams. Aristotle, ever the scientist, offered a different view. For him, dreams were not divine messages, but natural processes. He believed that when we sleep, the senses rest, but the impressions of the day remain active. These impressions, stored in the body and the mind, drift and combine to form the images of dreams. Aristotle also noted that bodily states influence dreams. If one was ill, the discomfort might appear in visions. If one was hungry, dreams might bring food. He even suggested that physicians could use dreams to understand a patient's condition. Since the body spoke through them, this was a bold idea, that dreams belonged not only to gods and spirits, but to the workings of human nature itself. Heraclitus and the fire of the mind. Long before Plato and Aristotle, the philosopher Heraclitus spoke of dreams as part of the ever-changing flow of life. He suggested that in sleep, the soul turned inward, exploring its own fire, a spark of the greater cosmos. Dreams, to him, were a reminder that human beings were not separate from the universe, but connected to its eternal rhythm. His words were poetic, mysterious, and left room for wonder, even as they leaned toward reason. The Stoics and the calm of the mind. Later, the Stoics, lovers of discipline and virtue, believed that dreams were shaped by impressions carried from daily life. For them, the key was not to be ruled by dreams but to remain calm, to treat them as reflections of the inner state rather than commands from the gods. If one dreamed of storms, it was not a prophecy but a mirror of inner turmoil. If one dreamed of peace, it reflected the harmony of a well-ordered mind. The meeting of faith and reason. What is striking is not the disagreement but the balance. The Greeks never fully abandoned the idea of divine dreams, nor did they fully embrace natural explanations. Instead, they lived in a world where both could be true. The gods might speak, but the body and mind also played their parts. In this way, philosophy did not destroy the mystery of dreams. It deepened it, offering new ways to see the night visions as messages, as symbols, and as reflections of the human soul. And so, dear listener, the philosophers invite us to think of dreams in two ways, as whispers of the divine and as echoes of ourselves. Whether one follows Plato, seeing hidden desires, or Aristotle, seeing natural impressions, both remind us that dreams hold meaning, even if that meaning is woven from different threads. In our next chapter, we will return from the philosopher's studies to the daily lives of the Greek people, exploring how ordinary men and women prepared for sleep sought good dreams and protected themselves from troubling visions. So, as you drift now into your own rest, consider what your dreams may reveal, not only about the mysteries beyond, but about the quiet truths within yourself. Bedtime rituals and everyday beliefs in Greece. Welcome back, dear listener. We have walked with philosophers and stood within the sacred dream temples, but tonight, let us return to the quieter corners of ancient Greece, the homes of ordinary men, women, and children. For while philosophers debated and priests guided rituals, it was in the simple rhythms of daily life that dreams were most often lived, remembered, and shared. What did the Greeks do before they closed their eyes at night? What charms and rituals brought them peace? And how did they protect themselves from troubling dreams? Let us step gently into their homes and see how the night was welcomed. The evening household picture, a modest Greek home at dusk. The day's labors are finished. Bread has been baked, olives stored, and perhaps a jug of wine poured for the evening meal. The family gathers in the courtyard, where the air is filled with the scent of herbs and the sound of crickets. As the stars begin to shine, children are guided to their sleeping places, while elders sit a little longer, telling stories or whispering prayers. In this quiet transition from day to night, the Greeks often prepared not only their bodies for rest, but also their souls for the dreams to come. Prayers to the gods of night. Before sleep, it was common to offer small prayers to the gods associated with rest and dreams. Hypnos, the god of sleep, and his son Morpheus, the shaper of dreams, were often invoked. Some whispered to Hermes, the messenger, asking him to carry away troubling visions. These prayers were not elaborate. They might be simple words spoken in the dark. Grant me peace, grant me light dreams. Guard my spirit as I rest. In the act of prayer, the sleeper felt shielded, knowing the gods were listening. Amulets and tokens for protection. Just as in Egypt, the Greeks also used charms to ward off harmful visions. A small figurine of a protective god might be placed by the bedside. Some wore simple amulets around the neck, often shaped like animals or carved from bone and stone. In particular, the owl, sacred to Athena, was thought to bring wisdom and safety in the night. A sprig of laurel or olive might also be kept nearby, both plants linked to divine favor and protection. For children, mothers sometimes traced symbols on their foreheads or told them gentle verses, believing these acts would protect them from nightmares. Dreams as guidance in daily life. When morning came, dreams were often spoken aloud. Families compared their visions, much as they discussed the weather or the marketplace. If a dream seemed significant, a parent might visit a local interpreter or ask advice from a neighbor skilled in lore. Dreams could guide decisions when to travel, whether to invest in a trade, or when to plant crops. While not every vision was seen as prophetic, few were dismissed as meaningless. Even the simplest image could be weighed for hidden truth. Nightly peace and trust in the divine. For most people, the comfort of belief mattered more than the accuracy of any interpretation. In a world filled with uncertainty, storms at sea, illness, war, and fate itself, dreams were a reminder that the gods were near, that the night was not empty, and that the human soul was part of a larger order. To sleep was to surrender, but also to trust. Trust in the gods, trust in symbols, and trust that whatever dreams came, they carried meaning worth remembering. And so, dear listener, we leave the humble homes of Greece. We have seen how people prayed for good dreams, wore amulets for protection, and shared their visions with family and friends. From the simplest villager to the greatest philosopher, all lived in a world where sleep was sacred, and dreams were a quiet thread connecting them to the divine. With this, we close the Greek section of our journey. From Homer's epics to the dream temples of Asclepius, from philosophers' debates to bedtime rituals and family homes. The Greeks saw dreams as both mysterious and meaningful. In our next chapter, we will sail north and west to ancient Rome, a world that inherited much from Greece but shaped dreams in its own way, blending faith, superstition, and politics into the visions of the night. So, as you prepare for sleep, imagine the flickering oil lamps of a Greek home, the gentle murmur of prayers, and the quiet trust that dreams, whatever they may bring, are never without meaning. Roman beliefs about dreams, the inheritance of Greece and beyond. Tonight, our journey takes us to the heart of an empire, to ancient Rome, where marble temples rose above crowded streets, and where the echoes of Greece mingled with Rome's own traditions. The Romans were a practical people, builders of roads and armies, but they were also deeply superstitious. They looked to the flight of birds, the crack of thunder, and yes, the visions of sleep for signs of what lay ahead. To them, dreams were not idle fantasies. They were messages, sometimes divine, sometimes dangerous, and always worthy of attention. Greek wisdom in Roman hands. When Rome absorbed the culture of Greece, it also absorbed its dream traditions. The stories of Homer, the teachings of Plato and Aristotle, and the rituals of Asclepius all found their way into Roman life. Yet the Romans were not content to merely copy. They reshaped dreams to fit their own world of politics, prophecy, and power. In Rome, dreams were not only personal, they could shape the fate of emperors and armies. A single vision, believed or ignored, might change the course of history. Dreams in the service of power. The Romans loved stories where dreams touched the lives of leaders. Julius Caesar himself was warned by a dream on the eve of his assassination. His wife Calpurnia dreamed of his statue bleeding, a vision she begged him to heed. He dismissed it, and the next day, he fell beneath the knives of conspirators. Such tales were not rare. Emperors and generals often consulted their dreams, or the dreams of others, before great decisions. A victorious campaign could be credited to a guiding dream. A disaster could be blamed on one ignored, for the powerful dreams were more than private visions. They were political signs, woven into the destiny of Rome itself. Dreams in religion. Rome was a land of many gods, and each was thought capable of sending dreams. Jupiter, king of the gods, might grant a vision of command. Mercury, the swift messenger, might deliver a warning. Venus might send a dream of love, while Mars might reveal victory or bloodshed. The Romans also practiced incubation, much as the Greeks did. Temples to healing gods welcomed dreamers, and visions were sought for guidance in health and fortune. Dreams were a bridge between human need and divine will, shaping decisions both great and small. The Roman people and their dreams. For ordinary Romans, merchants, farmers, mothers, and soldiers, dreams were just as meaningful. A dream of abundance might promise good harvests. A dream of storms might bring fear of misfortune. Children's dreams were often thought to carry special weight, their innocence believed to make them closer to the gods. Dreams were spoken about in the morning, shared with family or friends, and sometimes taken to local interpreters. Just as in Greece, dream interpreters wandered the streets of Rome, offering their insights to anyone willing to pay a coin. The practical and the superstitious. The Romans, ever pragmatic, often balanced reason with superstition. Some philosophers explained dreams in natural terms, as Aristotle had done, yet most people continued to see them as divine. This duality, faith and reason intertwined, was a hallmark of Roman life. A Roman might trust the physicians of the city by day, yet still visit a temple at night, hoping for healing through a dream. They built aqueducts and roads with engineering precision, yet feared the mysterious whispers of a vision in sleep. And so, dear listener, we see that Rome inherited the dream world of Greece but reshaped it to suit its empire. For leaders, dreams were political omens. For the common people, they were daily guides. For all, they were sacred messages, not to be dismissed. As we close this chapter, imagine the city of Rome at night, the hum of voices fading, the glow of lamps along narrow streets, the mighty palaces looming in silence. Behind each window, Romans rest, their dreams weaving 1,000 unseen threads, some humble, some mighty, all part of the empire's story. In our next chapter, we will step closer into the dreams of Rome's leaders and emperors, exploring how visions of the night touched the destiny of the greatest men of their age. Dreams of emperors and leaders. Let us walk softly into the private rooms of emperors, generals, and rulers of Rome. Behind the marble columns and golden thrones, they too closed their eyes each night and entered the mysterious world of dreams. For these men of power, visions carried not only personal meaning but also the weight of an empire's destiny. The dream of Julius Caesar, the most famous of Roman leaders, Julius Caesar, was no stranger to omens. On the night before his death, his wife Calpurnia dreamed of terrible signs: Caesar's statue bleeding from countless wounds, and Rome mourning in sorrow. She begged him not to attend the Senate that day. Caesar, proud and dismissive of superstition, ignored her warnings. By noon, the dream had proven true. Caesar lay slain at the feet of Pompey's statue, and the Roman Republic was forever changed. This tale became legend, a reminder that even the greatest rulers might ignore the whisper of a dream at their peril. The vision of Constantine. Centuries later, another ruler, Emperor Constantine, would claim that a dream changed the course of history. On the eve of battle, he dreamed of a shining cross in the sky, with words declaring, "By this sign, you shall conquer." He ordered his soldiers to paint the symbol on their shields. The next day, he won a great victory. From that moment, Constantine embraced Christianity, setting the empire on a path that would shape Europe for centuries. His dream became not only his own turning point, but the turning of Rome itself. Augustus and the dream of empire. Rome's first emperor, Augustus, also believed in the power of visions. Stories tell of dreams foretelling his rise to power, dreams in which symbols of greatness appeared before him. Some said his mother dreamed of the sun rising from her body, a sign that her son would bring light to the world. For Augustus, whether or not these tales were true, they strengthened the belief that his rule was fated, blessed by the gods themselves. The burden of dreams in leadership. For emperors and generals, dreams could be a heavy burden. To dream of defeat might fill a commander with dread before a campaign. To dream of betrayal might sow distrust among allies. Some rulers, fearful of visions, turned to interpreters or priests for guidance. Others trusted only themselves. But in Rome, no dream of a leader was taken lightly, for the fate of thousands, even millions, could rest upon its meaning. The human side of power. Yet behind the grandeur, these dreams remind us that emperors were human. They feared the future, longed for guidance. and sought comfort in the night, just as any farmer or mother in the countryside might do. Their dreams may have been remembered because of their power, but in truth, they shared in the same mystery of sleep as all Romans. Visions both wondrous and troubling, whispers from the unseen world. And so, dear listener, we leave the chambers of Rome's rulers. We have seen how Caesar ignored a dream and lost his life, how Constantine embraced a vision and changed history, and how Augustus clothed his power in symbols of divine destiny. For Rome, the dreams of leaders were never private. They were the empire's fate, shaping wars, religion, and the very course of history. As you drift deeper into rest, imagine the silence of a Roman palace at night. The streets are quiet, the guards stand watch, and in the stillness, even emperors dream, their visions as fragile and fleeting as any dream you might have tonight. In our next chapter, we will leave the palaces and walk among the common people of Rome, exploring how soldiers, farmers, and families experienced dreams in their daily lives. Dreams of the Roman people, daily life, soldiers, and families. We set aside the gilded halls of emperors and walk into the ordinary lives of Romans. For while rulers dreamed of conquest and destiny, most people dreamed of simpler things: safety, love, prosperity, and peace. Their dreams, too, were woven into the fabric of life in the empire. Dreams in the home. In the modest homes of Rome, dreams were often spoken about at the morning table. A father might tell of a strange vision during the night, while a mother wondered if her child's restless sleep carried a warning. Children's dreams, innocent and vivid, were thought to hold special meaning. Families sometimes kept small charms near the bed, a figure of a god, a sprig of laurel, or even a painted image of Mercury, who could carry away troubling visions. These tokens gave comfort, reminding the dreamer that the gods watched over them in sleep. Farmers and the land. For farmers, dreams often mirrored the cycles of the earth. A dream of rain could bring hope for the harvest, while a dream of storms might stir fear of ruin. The land was their lifeblood, and so any vision that touched on fields, animals, or the sky was taken seriously. Some farmers sought guidance from wandering dream interpreters, who offered meanings in exchange for a small coin. Others trusted only their own instincts, feeling that the gods spoke more clearly to those who worked close to the soil. Soldiers and their dreams. For soldiers, far from home, dreams could be a source of strength or of dread. A dream of victory might lift an army's spirits, while a dream of death or betrayal could spread unease through the camp. In times of war, commanders sometimes consulted their men's dreams, looking for signs of the gods' favor or displeasure. A single vision, told around the fire, might inspire courage or plant doubt before battle. For the lonely soldier, dreams of family or lovers were a comfort, reminders of what waited beyond the march of war. Mothers, children, and protection. Mothers in Rome often worried about their children's dreams. If a child cried out in the night, it was thought that a spirit or omen might be troubling them. To protect the young, mothers sometimes whispered charms, or placed protective amulets by the bedside. Dreams of children themselves were considered especially pure, as if their closeness to innocence allowed the gods to speak more clearly through them. A child's dream might even be shared with neighbors, treated as a vision for the whole community. The shared world of dreams. For ordinary Romans, dreams were not private matters. They were part of daily conversation, of faith, of superstition, and of the search for meaning in uncertain times. Dreams could guide small choices: when to plant, whether to travel, or how to prepare for a journey. They gave hope, stirred fear, and bound families together in their telling. The empire stretched across vast lands, but in every village, camp, and city street, Romans closed their eyes each night with the same quiet trust that dreams, whatever they brought, were messages worth listening to. And so, dear listener, we leave the homes, fields, and barracks of the Roman people. Their dreams were not written in marble or carved into history as the dreams of emperors were, yet they were just as meaningful. They reveal the hopes and fears of ordinary life, the longing for harvests, for safety, for love, and for peace. As you drift toward your own rest, imagine the hum of a Roman city at night, the flicker of lamps in windows, and the hush of families settling into sleep. Behind every door, dreams are waiting, humble and human, yet touched by the same mystery that has always guided mankind. In our next chapter, we will explore how Romans interpreted dreams, the symbols they believed in, and the books and guides that shaped their understanding of the night's visions. Interpreting dreams in Rome, symbols, books, and omens. Now turn to the quiet art of interpretation, the ways Romans sought to read the hidden language of dreams. For to them, a vision in the night was not merely a passing fancy. It was a message, wrapped in symbols, waiting to be understood. The tradition of dream interpreters. In the bustling streets of Rome, you might find men and women offering their services as dream interpreters. Some carried the air of priests, others the sharpness of merchants, but all claimed to know the language of dreams. For a coin, they would listen to your vision and speak of what it foretold. A dream of fire might mean passion or destruction. A dream of flowing water might promise travel or change. Their words, often vague, carried enough mystery to stir both fear and hope. Dream books and guides. Romans also inherited the Greek tradition of dream, manuals, collections of symbols and their meanings. These dream books, passed from hand to hand, offered guidance for those without access to interpreters. One of the most famous, attributed to Artemidorus, gave long lists of dream signs and their interpretations. To dream of a crown, it said, might mean power. To dream of broken weapons could foretell defeat. To dream of birds in flight might reveal freedom or escape. Such books were treasured possessions, guiding decisions for both the wealthy and the humble. The language of symbols. Romans believed that dreams spoke in riddles and images. A serpent might be a sign of hidden danger. A tree heavy with fruit might mean abundance. A collapsing building could hint at illness or loss. Yet symbols were rarely taken alone. The dreamer's own life, their station, their fears, their hopes, shaped the meaning. The same dream could be read differently for a soldier than for a farmer, for a mother than for a magistrate. Dreams were a language that demanded not just knowledge, but wisdom. Omens and superstitions. Some Romans tied their dreams to other omens. If a dream of misfortune came alongside the cry of an owl at night, the warning was thought doubly strong. If a dream of joy followed the sight of good omens, a bright star, a sudden wind, then hope grew greater. Superstition wrapped itself around dreams like ivy on stone, making them part of the larger web of signs that Romans saw in every corner of life. Faith and skepticism. Yet not all Romans believed. Some philosophers dismissed dreams as random echoes of the mind, mere shadows of waking thoughts. Cicero himself questioned whether visions truly came from the gods. Still, even skeptics often kept a cautious respect. Better to doubt quietly than to risk angering unseen powers. This tension between faith and reason, between omen and chance, was at the heart of Roman life, and dreams stood at its crossroads. And so, dear listener, we see how Romans tried to read the whispers of the night. Through interpreters in the marketplace, through treasured dream books, through symbols and omens, they sought meaning in every vision. For the Romans, dreams were not random. They were a secret script, half hidden, guiding choices both small and great. As you drift deeper into rest, imagine a Roman family in lamplight, turning the pages of a dream book, weighing each symbol with hope and worry. Imagine a soldier recalling a vision by the fire, and a philosopher frowning at the mysteries he cannot explain. In our next chapter, we will step once more into the personal, exploring the bedtime rituals and protections Romans used each night, hoping to invite good dreams and ward off the troubling ones. Roman bedtime rituals and the quest for good dreams. Welcome back, dear listener. Tonight, our journey takes us into the most intimate hour of Roman life, the time just before sleep. After the clamor of the marketplace, the marching of soldiers, and the bustle of baths and temples, the Romans returned to their homes, seeking rest. Yet even in this private hour, they did not forget the power of dreams. For the night was a sacred threshold, and how one crossed it could shape the visions that followed. Preparing the household for night in the courtyards of Roman homes. The evening meal marked the close of the day. Oil lamps were lit, and the soft glow filled the rooms with gentle light. Children were guided to their sleeping spaces, often with a whispered blessing or a protective charm. The elder members of the household might linger, telling stories of the gods, or recalling dreams from nights before. For the Romans, this transition from day to night was not only practical, it was spiritual. Sleep opened the door to divine messages, and one must enter carefully. Prayers to the gods of sleep and dreams. Many Romans whispered prayers before lying down. Some invoked Somnus, the god of sleep, asking him to grant peaceful rest. Others called on Mercury, the swift messenger, to bring only good dreams and carry away troubling ones. A common prayer was simple: guard my spirit, O gods, and grant me visions of light. These words, softly spoken, gave the dreamer comfort, a sense that the divine would watch over them in their most vulnerable state. Charms, amulets, and symbols. Romans often placed protective objects near the bed. Small figurines of household gods, the Lares and Penates, might be set at the bedside, ensuring safety in both waking and dreaming hours. Laurel leaves, sacred to Apollo, were believed to invite clarity and protection. Some wore amulets carved with symbols of animals, stars, or the protective eye. For children, mothers sometimes tied red threads to their wrists, a simple charm thought to ward off evil spirits in dreams. Even the placement of the bed mattered. Some Romans preferred to sleep with their heads toward the east, where the rising sun was linked to renewal and hope. Rituals of cleansing and peace before bed. Many Romans performed small acts of cleansing. A brief washing of the face or hands was common, a symbolic gesture of purity before entering the realm of dreams. Some sprinkled water on the threshold, asking for protection from wandering spirits of the night. Others burned incense or herbs, letting the fragrant smoke fill the room, carrying away unrest and inviting calm. Lavender, laurel, and myrrh were especially favored for their soothing qualities. Dreams as companions of the night. When all was done, the prayers, the charms, the cleansing, the Romans lay down to rest. The flicker of oil lamps faded, the streets outside grew quiet, and the city surrendered to the night. For Romans, to sleep was to enter a sacred dialogue. They believed that how one prepared for dreams could shape their course. Good dreams for those who honored the gods. troubling ones for those who neglected the rituals of rest, closing reflection so, dear listener, we see how Romans approached the night with care and reverence. Through prayers to the gods, protective charms, and quiet rituals, they sought not only rest for the body but peace for the soul. As you drift toward your own sleep, imagine a Roman home at night, the glow of the last lamp, the hush of voices fading, and the gentle trust that dreams, when welcomed with respect, might carry wisdom from beyond. With this, we close our journey through Rome. We have seen how emperors dreamed of destiny, how common people shared their visions, how interpreters and books offered meaning, and how bedtime rituals invited peace. In our next part of the journey, we will travel farther still, beyond Greece and Rome, to explore how other ancient cultures understood dreams, from Mesopotamia to distant lands where sleep held mysteries of its own. Mesopotamian dreams, the cradle of civilization, and the language of the gods. Our path carries us eastward, to the fertile lands between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization. Long before the rise of Greece or Rome, the people of Sumer, Akkad, Babylon, and Assyria gazed at the stars, built ziggurats, and pondered the mysteries of dreams. Here, in clay tablets pressed with cuneiform script, we find some of the earliest records of dream beliefs. To the Mesopotamians, dreams were not idle thoughts. They were divine messages, spoken in the night by gods and spirits, shaping the fates of kings and commoners alike. Dreams as messages from the gods. In Mesopotamian belief, the world was filled with gods, each ruling over aspects of life, from storms to fertility, from war to wisdom. Dreams were seen as their chosen language, a way for the divine to speak directly to mortals. To dream was to receive a message, sometimes a blessing, sometimes a warning. No dream was thought meaningless. Each vision carried a thread of truth, binding the dreamer to the will of the gods, kings, and the weight of dreams for kings and rulers. Dreams were especially important. Their visions were believed to reveal the destiny of entire kingdoms. A dream of victory could embolden an army, while a dream of disaster might halt a campaign. The Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the oldest stories ever written, is filled with dreams. Gilgamesh himself dreamed of meteors and axes, visions that his mother interpreted as signs of his destined companion, and these dreams gave shape to the tale of friendship and heroism that still echoes across time. Dream interpreters and priests in temples across Mesopotamia. Priests known as Baru specialized in divination. They read omens in the stars, in the flight of birds, and in the shapes of dreams. Ordinary people could bring their visions to these interpreters, who would consult tablets of dream lore to explain their meaning. The interpretations were precise. A dream of eating bread might foretell prosperity. A dream of falling could mean danger ahead. Thousands of such records were inscribed on clay tablets, creating a vast library of dream wisdom. The role of spirits and the dead. Not all dreams were seen as divine. Some were believed to come from restless spirits, or from the shades of the dead. A dream of a departed loved one might be taken as a visit from the afterlife, carrying warnings or requests for offerings. For this reason, many performed rituals after troubling dreams, pouring libations or burning incense to appease the spirits. In Mesopotamia, dreams connected the living and the dead as well as the human and the divine. Nightly rituals of the Mesopotamians before sleep. Some Mesopotamians prayed or recited charms, asking for favorable dreams. Kings especially might perform rituals to prepare for visionary dreams, seeking guidance for wars, harvests, or justice. In this way, sleep was never just rest. It was a sacred act, a nightly audience with forces greater than themselves. And so, dear listener, in Mesopotamia we find the roots of dream belief, visions recorded in clay, carried from the lips of kings to the hands of priests, and treasured as divine instructions for life itself. As you drift deeper into rest, imagine the quiet of an ancient city beneath the stars, the ziggurats rising like steps to heaven, and within its walls, a dreamer awaiting the voice of the gods. In our next chapter, we will move closer into the dreams of Mesopotamian kings and heroes, exploring how their visions shaped epic tales and guided the destiny of their people. Dreams of Mesopotamian kings and heroes. From Gilgamesh to Babylonian rulers, now let us walk the ancient palaces of Mesopotamia, where kings ruled vast cities, and where dreams were as much a part of power as armies and walls. In these earliest civilizations, the night was not silent. It spoke through visions that guided rulers, warned of danger, and shaped the myths we still remember. The Dreams of Gilgamesh, the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of humanity's oldest surviving stories, is filled with dreams. Gilgamesh, king of Uruk, often received visions in the night. One dream showed a meteor falling from the sky, too heavy to lift, and an axe lying in the street. His mother, the wise goddess Ninsun, explained that these signs foretold the arrival of a companion and the wild man who would become his dearest friend. Later, as the two heroes journeyed to face the monster Humbug, Gilgamesh dreamed of mountains collapsing and storms raging. These visions warned of danger, but also promised triumph, giving the heroes courage to continue. Through these dreams, we see how the gods spoke to heroes, guiding them toward destiny and weaving the threads of myth and legend. The Babylonian kings centuries after Gilgamesh. The kings of Babylon also looked to their dreams. To them, visions were not only personal but political messages about war, law, and divine favor. King Nebuchadnezzar II, known for his grandeur, is remembered in later traditions for troubling dreams that left him sleepless. These visions were seen as signs from the gods, warnings that demanded interpretation. Priests and diviners worked to explain them, for the fate of Babylon might hinge on their meaning. Even ordinary dreams, when dreamt by kings, became matters of state. They were written down, consulted, and used to shape decisions that touched millions of lives. The role of priests in royal dreams: when a king dreamed, it was never ignored. Priests gathered, interpreting every symbol with care. A lion in a dream might mean strength, but if chained it could signify danger. A river might mean abundance, or if flooding, destruction. The king's decisions to build, to fight, to ally, might rest on these interpretations. In this way, dreams were not private reflections, but instruments of governance, part of the machinery of rule. Dreams as propagandism: rulers even used dreams as a tool of power. A king might claim that a dream proved his right to rule, or that the gods had chosen him through visions. By tying their reign to the language of dreams, kings strengthened their authority, binding politics and spirituality together. For the people, such claims were not doubted. To hear that the gods had spoken in dreams was to believe that the king's power was divine and unshakable. The human side of kings yet behind the grandeur. Kings were human. They feared defeat. They longed for assurance, and in their sleep they sought the same comfort as any farmer or soldier. Their dreams, though remembered as mighty, were born of the same mystery of sleep that touched all of Mesopotamia. And so, dear listener, we see how dreams moved through the palaces of Mesopotamia, guiding heroes like Gilgamesh, troubling kings like Nebuchadnezzar, and shaping the destinies of cities and empires. As you prepare to rest, imagine the flicker of torches in a great palace hall, the king lying in silence, waiting for the gods to speak. For in Mesopotamia, dreams were not only private whispers, they were the voice of fate itself. In our next chapter, we will leave the palaces and walk among the ordinary people of Mesopotamia, exploring how farmers, traders, and families experienced dreams in their daily lives. Dreams of the Mesopotamian people: daily life, rituals, and protection. Until now, we've walked through the palaces of Gilgamesh and the courts of Babylonian kings, where dreams carried the weight of empires. Tonight, let us travel into the quieter corners of Mesopotamia, the homes of farmers, traders, and families, where dreams were woven into everyday life. Dreams in the common home for ordinary Mesopotamians. Dreams were not distant mysteries belonging only to kings or priests. They were nightly companions. A dream might be remembered at dawn while tending sheep, or whispered over a cooking fire, shared between husband and wife. A good dream could be celebrated, believed to bring fortune and protection. A troubling dream, however, stirred deep worry. People believed the gods might be sending warnings, or that evil spirits had slipped into the night to disturb their rest. Amulets and protective charms to protect themselves. Families turned to amulets. Small clay figures, beads, or carvings were placed near the bed, believed to guard against nightmares. Some carried the image of Pazuzu, a fearsome spirit with wings and a lion's face, who, despite his terrifying form, was thought to drive away greater evils. Others wore charms inscribed with prayers or divine names, calling upon the gods for safe and peaceful dreams. These objects were not ornaments but shields, warding off the invisible dangers of the night. Rituals before sleep. As dusk fell, many Mesopotamians performed small rituals to prepare for rest. Incense might be burned, smoke curling toward the ceiling, as a gift to the gods. A prayer might be whispered, asking for protection through the long hours of darkness. Sometimes, water was sprinkled in the room, symbolizing purity, or bread was left out as an offering to the spirits. Through these rituals, the household sought to calm the unseen world before slipping into dreams. Interpreting everyday dreams. When an ordinary man dreamed of walking by a river, or a woman dreamed of carrying a basket of grain, these images mattered. The Mesopotamian dream books, collections of omens written on clay tablets, were not reserved for kings. They also guided common people. A dream of eating sweet fruit might mean abundance was near. A dream of falling could be taken as a warning of sickness or loss. People shared their dreams with family or neighbors, seeking comfort or guidance. In this way, dreams became part of community life, woven into conversations and decisions. Dreams of loved ones. One of the most tender aspects of Mesopotamian dream life was the belief that the dead could visit in dreams. To dream of a lost parent or child was seen not as imagination, but as a true encounter. The dreamer might wake with tears, believing they had spoken with the departed. To honor such dreams, offerings were sometimes made at family altars: bread, beer, or incense given in remembrance, a way to keep the bond between the living and the dead alive through the night's visions, nightmares and remedies. But when nightmares came, people turned quickly to remedies. If a child cried from a fearful dream, a parent might recite a protective chant, calling on the gods to chase away evil. Priests could also be consulted, writing incantations on clay tablets that were then placed under the sleeper's pillow. These remedies remind us that Mesopotamians did not see dreams as harmless illusions. They were real encounters with forces beyond human control, and to ignore them was dangerous. And so, dear listener, we see that in Mesopotamia, dreams touched everyone, not just the mighty, but also the humble. Every home carried its rituals, its amulets, its whispered prayers at night. Dreams shaped choices, brought comfort, and sometimes carried fear. But they were always respected. As you rest tonight, imagine lying in a mud brick house under the vast Mesopotamian sky. The air is warm, the fire has burned low, and beside your bed, a small charm keeps watch. You close your eyes, trusting that the gods will grant you peaceful dreams until the morning comes. In our next chapter, we will explore the rituals of dream incubation in Mesopotamia, how temples offered sacred sleep as a bridge to the divine. Dream incubation in Mesopotamia, sacred sleep and the search for healing. Let us leave the quiet homes of farmers and families behind, and walk once more into the towering temples of Mesopotamia. These were not only places of sacrifice and prayer, but also sanctuaries of sleep, where dreams were sought with reverence. Here, in the stillness of night, worshippers practiced the sacred art of dream incubation. The temple as a gateway. Mesopotamian temples, with their massive ziggurats rising toward the sky, were believed to stand between heaven and earth. Within their courtyards and sacred chambers, people came seeking not only the favor of the gods but also answers to their most pressing fears. It was here that dream incubation took place, the practice of deliberately entering sleep in a sacred space, hoping to receive a vision from the divine. Preparing for the sacred sleep. The path to dream incubation was not simple. Worshippers cleansed themselves with water, washed away impurities, and sometimes fasted before entering the temple. Offerings of bread, oil, or incense were placed before the altar, gifts meant to soften the hearts of the gods. Priests guided the rituals, reciting hymns and invocations. Some worshippers lay upon mats or simple beds within the temple, while others slept in courtyards under the stars, believing the open sky allowed the gods to descend more freely into their dreams. The night of waiting as darkness fell, and silence spread through the temple halls. The worshipper waited. Sleep in this setting was not ordinary. It was filled with expectation. Every sound, the crackle of a torch, the sigh of the wind through stone, carried the weight of meaning. The dreamer hoped the gods would visit, offering healing, guidance, or protection. If the night passed without a vision, it was not seen as failure, but as a mystery. Perhaps the gods had chosen another time, another dream. Healing through dreams. Many came to these temples seeking healing. They believed that in dreams, the gods could reveal remedies for illness, or even grant direct restoration of health. A dream of drinking clear water might mean the body would be purified. A dream of being touched by a divine hand was taken as a promise of recovery. Priests listened carefully to the dreams, recording them and offering interpretations. These visions shaped not only the well-being of the dreamer, but also the practices of temple healing. Dreams of guidance and destiny. Dream incubation was not limited to sickness. A farmer might sleep in the temple before planting, hoping the gods would show whether the season would be fruitful. A traveler might seek guidance on a dangerous journey. Even rulers sometimes took part, desiring reassurance from the divine before making choices of war or peace. In these ways, dream incubation made the temple a place where human need and divine wisdom met through the language of sleep. Priests as interpreters. Priests held great authority in this practice. They were not only caretakers of the temple, but also mediators between gods and mortals. Their interpretations of dreams could shape lives, determine rituals, and inspire confidence or caution in those who sought the temple's help. Because of this, priests were seen as custodians of divine communication, and their role in dream incubation bound them tightly to the trust of the community. And so, dear listener, dream incubation in Mesopotamia reminds us that sleep was never just rest. It was a sacred act, a passageway through which mortals reached out to the gods and waited for visions in return. As you drift into your own dreams tonight, imagine lying within a great temple courtyard. The torches glow softly, priests chant in low voices, and above you the stars shimmer over the ziggurat. You close your eyes, trusting that in the silence, the gods may come to you as they once came to the dreamers of Mesopotamia. In our next chapter, we will explore the darker side of Mesopotamian dreams, the omens, nightmares, and warnings that haunted the night. Dear listener, tonight, we linger for the last time among the dreamers of the ancient world. We have walked through temples and palaces, sat beside kings and farmers, and enter the mysterious space of the sleeping mind. And now, as our journey reaches its end, let us reflect on the shadows and the light of dreams in Mesopotamia, and in the ancient world as a whole. Dreams as warnings in Mesopotamia, as we have seen. Not all dreams were gentle. Many carried the weight of fear, filled with omens of loss or disaster. A river flooding, a wall collapsing, a voice crying in the dark. Each image was believed to carry divine meaning. Nightmares, too, were seen as more than imagination. They were thought to be the work of wandering spirits or demons, intruding upon the sleeper's rest. Amulets, charms, and whispered prayers became shields against these terrors. Even kings relied on priests to cleanse and protect them from the dangers that emerged in the night. Nightmares and the human heart, and yet, these fearful dreams remind us of something deeply human. Across time and culture, people have wrestled with the darkness of the mind. The Mesopotamians, like us, sought comfort when dreams unsettled them. They turned to rituals, to family, to faith. Their fear gave birth to traditions, and their traditions gave them courage to face each dawn. The great tapestry of dreams. As we step back, dear listener, we see how vast this tapestry truly is. In Egypt, dreams were messages of the gods, written in sacred dream books. In Greece, temples welcomed pilgrims to sleep beneath their roofs, seeking healing visions. In Rome, dreams became omens for emperors and soldiers alike. And here, in Mesopotamia, dreams were woven into the daily rhythm of life, guiding both kings and commoners, shaping rituals, and giving meaning to the shadows of night. Every civilization we have visited shared one truth: dreams mattered. They were not dismissed, but honored, feared, and cherished. They were seen as bridges, fragile but precious, between mortals and the divine. The timeless mystery. Though centuries have passed, the mystery of dreams remains with us. We no longer sleep beneath temple walls or consult clay tablets for their meanings, yet even today, we wake from strange visions with questions on our lips. We still seek meaning in the images that come unbidden, and we still wonder whether they are whispers from beyond or echoes of our own hearts. Closing reflection. And so, dear listener, our journey draws to a close. From the sands of Egypt to the ziggurats of Mesopotamia, from the philosophers of Greece to the dreamers of Rome, we have wandered through the night with those who came before us. May this story remind you that to dream is to share in something ancient, a mystery that bound together kings and peasants, priests and wanderers, mothers and children. Tonight, as you close your eyes, remember that you are part of this same timeless tradition. Your dreams too are threads in the great human story. Some may comfort, some may frighten, but all are part of the journey through the quiet landscapes of sleep. So rest now, dear listener. Let the night carry you gently. May your sleep be free of omens, your dreams filled with peace, and may you awaken tomorrow with calm in your heart. And so, dear listener, our story comes to its close. From kings and priests to farmers and families, we have seen how dreams shaped the lives of those who came before us. May these stories remind you that when you dream tonight, you are walking the same mysterious path as the ancients, a path of wonder, of questions, and of quiet connection to something beyond yourself. Thank you for joining me here at Go to Sleep Historian. If you've enjoyed this journey, I invite you to subscribe, so that you can return whenever you wish to drift into the past and let history guide you into gentle sleep. Until next time, may your dreams be peaceful, and your rest full of calm.